We are World Animal Protection. We fight to protect animals around the globe and in the systems that trap, abuse, and exploit them. Together, we're changing the way the world works to end animal cruelty and suffering forever.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And to start,
Absolutely happy to be here.
can you tell us a little bit about who you are, Cameron, and the role you play with your organization? What led you to do this work?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Cameron Harsh. I'm currently the Interim US Executive Director for World Animal Protection. So we are a global animal advocacy organization with offices in 12 different countries. So I oversee our US country office within the global network. And I lead a team of about 20 folks across the US. We're a fully remote team. So we have team members in Miami, New York, Chicago, Austin, Texas, LA, Seattle, all across the US, who are working to deliver our global strategy in the US context. What led me to this work is I've always had a passion for making change and making positive change in the world, and really have been focused on environmental systems and natural systems, and really providing some solutions to some of the natural problems that we have created as a species on this planet. So World Animal Protection and its mission is really aligned with my personal values. And so it makes, coming to work very easy every day.
That's awesome.
Our dream is a world where every animal lives free from suffering and cruelty. We are World Animal Protection, and we're fighting to make that dream a reality. This is the story of how we're moving the world to protect animals. Our journey began in the 1950s, when factory farming was on the rise, and animal welfare regulations barely existed. Back then, we operated as the World Federation for the Protection of Animals and the International Society for the Protection of Animals. But we've changed a lot more than our name since then. During the 60s, our lobbying helped set the first ever global standards for farm animal welfare, improving transport conditions. In 1964, ISPA animal officer John Walsh heroically helped rescue 10,000 animals from floodwaters in Suriname. Since then, we've responded to over 250 disasters worldwide, protecting more than 8 million animals and helping 480 million more. When WFPA and ISPA joined forces in 1981 to become the World Society for the Protection of Animals, our global impact only grew. We established ourselves as powerful campaigners, using science and evidence to champion animals like never before, and made legal history by gaining consultative status at the United Nations. In 1983, our first shelter opened in Costa Rica, beginning a long legacy in wildlife rescues, rehabilitation and release. The 90s saw us ramp up our fight against the cruel fur industry, influencing fashion weeks worldwide to ban fur and exotic skins. Since opening our first Liberty Sanctuary in 1992, we've helped give over 600 bears a new life. For more than 30 years, we've been campaigning to end cruel practices like bear baiting, dancing, and biofarming for good. Children in schools across Africa were inspired to care about animals through our All Africa Kindness Clubs, and we embedded animal welfare into veterinary school curriculums across the globe. In 2009, we made history by enabling the world's first release of captive bonobos back into the wild. Together with the UN, we held the first ever symposium on marine litter's impact on animals, laying the foundation for the global Ghost Gear initiative. In 2014, our name changed to World Animal Protection, but our determination to protect animals remained the same. 2016 marked the 1 millionth rabies vaccination given to dogs, protecting them and countless people from the spread of this fatal disease. Our work to end the exploitation of wild animals for tourism has supported various venues in Thailand to stop cruel elephant rides and become truly elephant-friendly. These are just a few milestones we've helped achieve in our proud history. Together with our incredible supporters, we're making real progress. The world has changed for animals.
For those who may be new to it, can you share more about World Animal Protection and its mission? What are the core values guiding your work today?
Yeah, World Animal Protection, for those who don't know us, we actually did celebrate our 75th year anniversary last year. So we have been around for quite a long time, under a couple of different names and banners, but we have been World Animal Protection since 2014. So we are a global network of 12 country offices with a headquarters in the United Kingdom. And our mission is to move the world to protect animals and end cruelty and suffering to animals. And we are doing this by transforming the biggest systems that exploit animals and treat them like commodities. So we have a program area that is focused on ending the commercial exploitation of wildlife. So that can be using wildlife and their products for traditional medicines, for human entertainment, such as dolphins at SeaWorld, for use in the pet trade to be kept in human homes, all sorts of ways in which we exploit and commodify wild animals. And then we also have a program area to end factory farming. Industrial scale production of animals for food is one of the largest sources of cruelty and suffering to animals worldwide today. We're talking about tens of billions of chickens alone who are in this system, and really transforming that system so that we have a food system that's much more plant-based, much more diversified, and much more focused on putting animals at the center.
That's amazing. That's a really amazing mission. I am personally a big animal lover, and obviously you're doing goodness and you're a perfect match for our show because you're helping the animals. Not a lot of people or corporations or governments really think about animals that much. Somebody.
Yeah, thank you.
In what ways do you feel your organization is contributing to goodness? I just mentioned it of the world right now. I'm sure you have things to add to what I just said. Are there any recent initiatives or successes you're especially proud of?
Yeah, I think it's relatively universal almost that people have an appreciation for animals. They feel empathy towards animals, and really care for protecting animals when they have a greater understanding of who animals are and the ways in which we're creating systems that cause animal suffering, destroy their habitats, exploit them and their body parts for certain products. So it's a really important mission, when we focus on kind of three areas of we do a lot of education and awareness raising, and then we do a lot of policy change initiatives, both at national government level and at the international kind of treaty level, working at the World Health Organization and the Convention on Biological Diversity to really protect animals in global treaties. And we also work with companies to implement policies that protect animals within their supply chains. So it's really multifaceted in our approach, really trying to make sure that we're moving into a system and a mindset that respects animals, respects who they are. And that's really, building goodness into the systems that we take for granted. And so one of our key initiatives for the US office is really raising awareness about the cruelty and suffering that happens behind the scenes in the pet trade. And the animals that you see at large pet retailers like PetSmart and Petco are wild animals that have been most likely bred in kind of commercial style mills. And they've been bred for the purpose of being sold in pet stores and then being kept in human homes. So we recently launched the findings of an investigation where we sent an undercover investigator to bird mills in Oklahoma and Texas and just showed the crowding in cages for these parrot species that are bred and farmed and then sold as pets, the filthy conditions, and ultimately there's extremely high mortality rates just to get animals on shelves at pet stores.
Okay, yeah, these kind of things really horrific. Makes me very upset to hear these kind of things. It brought up a question to me, which I'll mention later. I'll go with my ready questions right now. But I'll add a few additional questions when I'm done.
Mhm.
Environmental issues and animal welfare are deeply connected. What are your thoughts on the current environmental challenges we're facing and how do they intersect with animal protection?
One of the great things about World Animal Protection is both our global reach and the fact that we focus on protecting wild animals and protecting animals who are raised and slaughtered for food in the factory farming system. And so one of the interconnected points of that is climate and really protecting um, and mitigating against planetary destruction and trying to stop climate change and curb climate change as much as possible. And so really demonstrating to governments and policymakers, as well as to everyday citizens and consumers and people who are making food choices at the grocery store to understand that factory farming, the industrial scale production of pigs, chickens, and cows for their meat or for their eggs and dairy has impacts on the environment. This system is encroaching into wild habitats, such as, very, very sensitive ecosystems in Brazil. And our Brazil office is very, very strong on telling the stories of the wild animals who live there and the wild animals who are threatened by the expansion of grazing cows intensively or raising intensive soy crops to feed animals in these intensive livestock systems. So there's a lot of destruction of nature that happens just to prop up industrial scale animal agriculture. So the choices that we're making in a US grocery store about what we buy to feed our families has impacts for anteaters in Brazil, for jaguars in Brazil, in addition to the fact that these industrial scale supply chains and facilities are emitting so much in terms of greenhouse gases. They are one of the biggest climate culprits on the planet right now. There are meat companies that most people don't know about, like JBS, that they're actually emitting as much greenhouse gas pollutants into the environment as several countries, but they're just a single company.
Yeah, I've heard about that in a lot of environmental documentaries. That's a really big issue. I hope things change slowly and surely. How can everyday people help support or contribute to our organization's mission? What actions truly make a difference?
Yeah, we rely so heavily on individuals in our work and supporting our work. And of course, we rely on individuals to give us donations that help contribute to our success worldwide. Donations supporting the rescue of animals like Amba the pangolin and Peter the pangolin, who we rescued in Indonesia recently. But certainly on our website at worldanimalprotection.us, there are a number of ways that individuals can take action. Petition signatures are always welcome. We often deliver tens of thousands of petition signatures to companies or to decision makers, really demonstrating that there is public support for the wins we're trying to achieve and the goals we have for animals. And there are higher levels of action that people can take if they're interested, like contacting their members of Congress to support a piece of legislation that we endorse. We also have toolkits for individuals who maybe want to take action in their own communities and their own neighborhoods. Toolkits that relate to helping to pass a local ban in their city that bans the sale of animals in pet stores like Petco and PetSmart. We have a toolkit on how to set up an initiative that we created called Dine Vegan, that is an initiative you can take ownership of and create in your own neighborhood. And we have other action toolkits as well. So it's a really great way to get involved at whatever level you have capacity for. And we're always welcome people reaching out to us as well.
If you can do me a favor and whenever there's petitions or that people can be actively involved, feel free to share it with me and we can always edit in our newsletters to spread the word as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give a shout out to one of our priority petitions for the US right now is we've circulated a petition to free an elephant named Joyce. She is one of several elephants who are at a Six Flags theme park in New Jersey. It's Six Flags Great Adventure, and they have a wild safari part of their park, which has over 1,000 animals of different species from different continents and habitats in this very small park area. But our concern for the elephants in particular is they're very close to roller coasters and these big rumbling safari trucks that tour the visitors through. And elephants are sensitive to vibrations in the ground. And we actually last year had seismologists do some readings outside the park showing that there are clear vibrations at levels that elephants can sense going through that enclosure regularly while the park is open.
I see. Okay, now before I close, I have my closing question there, but before I close, I want to add three improvisational questions came to my
Yeah.
mind to speak. One of them is I have mixed feeling about these things. Like when I'm originally from Turkey, Istanbul, and
Okay.
summer times we used to go to the island. There was no cars, only horse carriages. And I
Hmm.
grew up with them. I grew up loving the horse carriages, and most of the people were nice to them, you know. And then some mean people were like whip them too hard or whatever, and we would react to that. We would get upset. We would want them to be whipped. But then, people petition. They say no, there shouldn't be horses. They're not treating horses well, whatever. And they removed all the horses. And they
Hmm.
think they did the right thing. But I'm thinking, what? At least, yeah, they made the horses work. But through that, a lot of horses were being taken care of. They were being fed. There was like horses around,
Hmm.
instead of cars. It was good for the environment because zero carbohydrate from animals. And it was terrible that they took it out, and it ruined the kind of the island experience for me. And I feel bad, like maybe one or two people have horses in the island anymore, but they're not taking care of those horses because they can
Yeah.
make money from them. Similarly, dolphin parks, I hear whenever they're not teething well, of course it makes me upset. But a lot of times, again, it makes them keep the dolphins. Somebody somewhere taking care of the dolphins, or the list can go on. I mean, of course, in their case, the elephants were not in a good environment. So if they were like,
Hmm.
getting affected, but as long as they're being treated right, I'm not anti animals being worked, to be honest with you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting situation. And with the horse-drawn carriages, there's been a really important conversation in New York City about the horse-drawn carriages in Central Park, and a lot of work has really been done to demonstrate that, putting horses through the things that they have to endure in order to become workhorses and pull these carriages, there's a lot of concern for the welfare of the animals, the ways that they're treated, the conditions that they're kept in, and the things that they have to do in order to be encouraged and coerced to work continuously. Um, and there is a framework that we endorse as World Animal Protection called the Five Domains of Animal Welfare. And it really sets out not just the physical conditions that an animal needs in order to be maintained well and in a way that respects them, such as, appropriate diets and regular access to nutrition and water. But it's also about their psychological health and well-being. And a lot of that has to do with, can the animal make their own choices? Do they have agency over their own behavior and their own decisions? And a lot of times when animals are in work environments, they're not making their own decisions. They're not electing or opting into certain things. And so that's a big red flag for us. In the case of dolphin shows and dolphinariums and companies like SeaWorld or the Dolphin Company, those companies often mislead visitors about how much work they're doing and contribution they're doing to conserving dolphin populations in the wild and dolphin populations and habitats in nature. And they're really just breeding dolphins and whales in captivity to perpetuate having animal performers that visitors want to pay to see. And so it's really about the fact that they're operating a business and they're trying to profit from the animals. They're not
Right.
doing much in way of conservation. And once you start to focus on an animal as a profit driver, then things start to go quite wrong. And with dolphins too, we've done a lot to show that the tanks that dolphins are kept in are 20,000 times less the size that they would be ranging in the ocean, and the psychological impacts that has are significant.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think after everything you said, I think there should be better guidelines for sure, but removing them completely, I think actually results not as many animals being taken care of. I think they can be better regulated. The other
And
thing I want to
there are
ask,
sanctuaries.
yeah.
There's a system of sanctuaries called the Global Federation of Accredited Sanctuaries, and many of them do allow visitors, and they don't allow visitors to interact with the animals, but they take in rescued animals, animals that can't be returned to the wild, animals that were found or surrendered by their owners. And so the sanctuary system is a really important kind of need at the moment while we transform the systems that exploit animals, but they do offer a way for people who want to see animals behaving more like themselves to kind of go through, pass through, be a visitor, and respect animals in that way.
I think maybe San Diego Safari Park is a bit like that. I didn't have a chance to see, but I want to go see it. Yeah, I hear a few celebrities are doing that, like Millie Bobby Brown, the girl in Stranger Things. She opened
Oh,
like a sanctuary. I hear a few celebrities are doing that, which is great. Two last questions. One time I was approached by a fetish organization. And for a minute it sounded like a good deal. Oh, I'm just gonna take a picture of my feet and get paid for it? Sure, why not? But then when I digged in and wanted to get more information, I found out they're like squishing animals with their feet. And I don't know how, to what degree. And I was horrified. And I contacted PETA to report them. Like that's what they're doing. And but of course they wanted more information. I think to really I only knew them online. Like, online it's very hard to catch these people. Probably somebody should have acted like interested undercover and get them on act or something to really get them caught. So that was horrible. Like just for pleasure of some sick people, they were squishing animals. Like he said,
wow.
"Oh, would you squish like chicks or cats or whatever?" I'm like, I was like so, so upset. And I wanted to like get these people caught and, get punished for what they're doing, but I just didn't have the time and resources to deal with it. So if I encounter this or any kind of animal abuse, like what do you recommend me to do? What can I?
Yeah, there's a lot of animal cruelty on social media. Some of it is really overt animal cruelty, where you can see that the social media um, characters are actively doing something cruel to an animal. And then there's a lot of content on social media where it seems like the animal is in great conditions, but you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes when the cameras are off. So we are part of a coalition called the Social Media Anti-Cruelty Coalition that does a lot of work to expose the cruelty that happens on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And there are things that individual users can do. The main thing that we say is scroll past. Like, don't continue to look and continue to watch, even if you are feeling that you're doing that in order to know what's happening to report them.
Mhm.
The longer that you look at this post, the more it's going to get kind of hit with the algorithm, and it's going to show up for more people and kind of be sustained in that way, because that's the way that social media algorithms work. So the best thing you can do is scroll past as fast as possible, but get the information you need to report that user, that profile to, Meta in the case of Instagram, or Google or whatever the platform owner is. All of these platforms do have a cruelty or offensive content reporting mechanism.
Right.
And that's really the best thing that you can do.
Okay, good to know. By the way, we have 5 minutes left. I'll ask one
Okay.
more question. And after that, I need you maybe just to do a closing. I won't hold you much in the second one. It'll be
Okay.
quick. What do you think about being vegan and vegetarianism? Vegan, is that really the only solution? Can I still be a meat eater but still love animals? Like, is there is there a way not to have to be vegan or vegetarian but still do this right?
Veganism is certainly a good goal to aspire to, and eliminating animal products from our diets is more feasible today than it's been in the past. There are a lot of alternative products. There's a lot more knowledge about healthy and adequate nutrition and eating whole plant foods. Really, it's about ending factory farming. And so in the US, it's about significant reductions in our meat consumption, because the US is one of the biggest drivers of meat consumption and production globally. The average American eats something like 200 plus pounds of meat a year. And it really is driving this style of production where we're treating animals like commodities and like cogs in a factory and trying to get them through a system as quickly and efficiently as possible and getting as much out of them as possible, which is just, it's causing crowding and over confinement, nutritional disease, and all sorts of issues for the animals and all sorts of cruelty. So really, it's about making sure that we're reducing our meat consumption and approaching a diet that is made up mostly of plants, whole plant foods. And, heading in that direction is so important for addressing this cruelty that for those who can go vegan and it's accessible to them, that's a great goal to have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope to get there myself.
Roll the film.
Thanks to your support, we helped Jakarta Animal Aid Network rescue 31 macaques from the dancing monkey industry. This resulted in the shutdown of the second largest dancing monkey training center in Cirebon, Indonesia. We continued to support On Safari, an Instituto Tamanduat, and the rehabilitation of animals injured in fires caused by expanding agribusiness in Brazil.
To close, is there anything you'd like to promote, highlight, or leave our audience with? Any final thoughts or messages you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think hopefully if your audience walks away with two things, I think one thing would be to really understand that factory farming, the industrial scale production of animals for food, is destroying our planet. Not only is it really, really cruel to animals, but it's deforesting sensitive areas like the rainforest in Brazil, and also koala habitats in Australia. It's impacting workers negatively by forcing them into slaughter lines that are very high speed and very dangerous. It's not respectful of workers' rights. It's not respectful of family farmers. It's putting out a lot of pollutants and bacteria into our environment that put our health at risk. It's really, really important, whether you care about your health and your family's health, whether you care about climate, whether you care about justice in our food system, that we have to reduce our meat consumption and get to a point where we really address the scale that this industry has achieved and the power that this industry has achieved. And the way to do that is to consume and produce less animal products and really focus on whole plant-based, healthy and nutritious foods. The other takeaway that I would love for the audience to have is really understanding that wild animals are deserving of a wildlife in their natural and protected habitat. And that's really our main goal for wildlife, is making sure that they're not exploited, that they're not used, they're not treated as commodities and taken from the wild for their body parts or to be kept in our homes or used to entertain us. They deserve the lives that they naturally have in habitats that are thriving. And really, it is about making sure that humans and animals are thriving together.
Very nice. Beautifully talked. Thank you so much. It's been very informational and educational. I learned a lot just talking to you.
Thank you.
And have a better idea what we can do about all this. Lastly, we usually end our show saying, goodness will win.
Goodness will win. If you want to learn more about World Animal Protection, you can go to worldanimalprotection.us and follow us on all social media channels. You can also subscribe to the Searching for Goodness podcast in all places where you get your podcasts.
Okay, thank you so much, Cameron, for your time. It was a great, short and sweet interview.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It was really a pleasure.
We're in New York outside of one of the travel industry's largest events to show Get Your Guide that we won't stop campaigning until it stops selling animal cruelty. Elephant rides, alligator wrestling, sloth selfies, and dolphin shows are just a few examples of the cruelty and torment that the company is endorsing by continuing to partner with these types of businesses. Captive animal attractions are unacceptable even by the company's own policies, so it's lying to its customers, investors, and peers if it continues to profit from cruel captive animal attraction. Get Your Guide is not making memories, it's making misery.
Thank you.